Hey guys, Paul here. Today we're going to be talking about basing and diorama. Every single technique here can be applied to pretty much the entire hobby. Basing dioramas doesn't have to be daunting. In fact, it's probably the most fun out of, the entire build. At least top three anyway. I consider it top three. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to show you the products. And then near the end, I'm going to be showing you what I've done personally with diorama and basing, okay? All right, so we're going to be starting with the foundation, bottom up. And typically, a lot of people use styrofoam for their foundations. If you're using cork, move onwards. This doesn't apply to you. This step's not going to apply to you. Because styrofoam, as you all know, very brittle. You breathe on it wrong, it kind of just breaks. But also, for a lot of people who are new, styrofoam, if you use spray can, aerosol cans, it melts. It doesn't matter if it's acrylic, lacquer, or enamel, it's gonna melt. And it's something to do with the aerosol itself that's added onto the colors. It doesn't matter if it's acrylic or not. In fact, I've used Citadel and Vallejo spray primers on styrofoam, and they melted before my very eyes. It was hilarious to watch, actually. But in any case, why do I need to prime styrofoam? Well, first of all, you need to seal it so that the paint on top doesn't get absorbed. Does that make sense? Also, the paint becomes more durable, and etc., and it's easier for you to paint. Just prime everything you're going to paint, okay? What are you going to be using for priming? If normal aerosol cans affects it and melts it, well, of course, if you're an airbrusher, you have a gun, a compressor, move. Okay, next step for you. This doesn't apply to you. But if you don't, use these. These are the GameMaster from Army Painter, or use anything that's similar. Basically, the moment it says terrain sealing, you're good. You're good. It's not gonna melt it. It's just gonna be sealing it and priming it. You're solid. Okay, now that you've cut your styrofoam and primed it, you can go ahead and paint. I'm not going to tell you what paint to use after priming. Just pick a color. Anyway, now this is where the fun begins, as Anakin would say. Because now you can do whatever you want. After you want to do a fall base, then just find a leaf and tear it up to shreds. And then kind of drizzle it on your base, right? So this is the fun. But what are you going to be using to make sure it adheres to your base? Well, there are several options, right? Whatever you apply, right? There's several options. The most basic one is Elmer's glue. Do note that most brands' basing glue is PVC or PVC-like. They're basically the same. And if you're not going to be playing with your base, like you're not going to be using it on the tabletop, whether for D&D, Warhammer, Star Wars Legion or something, and you're just planning to display it, PVC is perfectly fine. But the moment you play with it, after like the 30th attempt, it's gonna start to peel. It's gonna peel like a reptile. It's gonna look bad. Not just bad, it's everything that you've applied will fall off. So do keep that in mind. PVC ages like milk when you play with it a lot. On the other hand, you have the super glue, CA glue option. It is the nuclear option, quote unquote, but it is basically permanent, and it is my recommended option if you're playing the game, any of these games. Yeah, you can use something called texture paint. Once I have these ones, when they dry, they look like the ground. Just normal ground, whether that be this one, the grass effect, where when it dries, it kind of has that look when you've freshly mown your grass, where there's grass all over the place, some of it's wet in the morning, the morning dew and whatnot. It kind of has that look. There's also another version where it's this, but it's like brown, so like dead grass everywhere. In fact, if you open it like this, it's from Tamiya, excellent product by the way. Look at it. Yeah. When it dries, all the grass, it looks perfect. It looks perfect, honestly. Then you have stuff like this from Ammo by Mig, and AK Interactive. Basically, these are, when they dry, they either turn into purple mud for the demon earth. There's also just the generic mud. Yeah, these are perfect. And all you need to do is apply them with, I recommend an older brush, a brush you're no longer using, you can throw away. Though actually don't throw away that brush after you use it, clean it. Now granted, once you use it with these texture paints, that brush is basically damaged. I recommend you cut it in the middle of the bristles and you get a free dry brush. Don't throw it away, okay? Then the other school of thought after the texture paints would be something more tangible, more solid. Stuff like this. Sea glue, of course, whether that be deadfall you apply to maybe your fall base, or I don't know, ruins or something. Smoking ruins, there'd be dead trees everywhere. Yeah, something like deadfall. Or a pasture, and you apply this. And then again, you apply it using either a static applicator, which Woodland Scenics actually has, so it stands perfectly up. But if you don't care about that, these are fine enough to where if you apply it like that, it looks like Bermuda grass from far away. Because remember, you're viewing these things from at least 2 to 3 feet away. Very, very rare do you actually put it like this. You're not inspecting everything. Yeah, right? It's gonna be in the display case most of the time. So, and then you have, of course, the classic rocks in a bag. Whether that be pebbles, rocks, boulders, that sort of thing. Go to town, doesn't matter. Though, if you're gonna be getting rocks from your yard, I recommend cleaning them. Maybe not baking them. If they're in your yard, they may have collected water from the rain, absorbed it, and they may explode in your oven. If you're gonna be doing baking just to clean it before applying, make sure that it is completely dry, okay? Let it dry in your house for like a day or two, and then bake it or something. But just soak it down and pat it dry, okay? Hey, here to jump scare you one last time before I show you my bases. These things here are a special kind of texture paint that can be found in Vallejo, Citadel. These are Citadel paints, AK. They're spread all over the place. These are special, and when they dry, they kind of start cracking. So that is an extra effect. So the more you clump on, the thicker the clump, the thicker the cracks would be. So for example, a Greenery, you can make it look like a desert once it dries, a cracked, really dry desert. And of course, Martian Ironearth, you can make it look like the surface of Mars once it dries. And another technique that's pretty cool is that once it dries, you can prime it white and use the appropriate colors, and dry brushing, you can make it an Arctic base. So yeah, that's it. This is the final brand or type of texture paints, all right? So now I'm gonna show you my bases. So to start off with, we're gonna show you what Gamers Grass sent us as a gift, something to show off when we became an official retailer that sold their products. Look at this. This is like the final boss of all diorama basings and foundations. This is sick. This is so beautiful. This is beautiful. And then this is example 1. This is something that could even relate to this base or this diorama. Maybe like it's farther out, you know, a more grown, more ruined part of the diorama. But anyways, I showed it first because it looks quite related. Anyway, those are rocks from AK. Same with the leaves, AK as well. And look at that. This is so simple. This took me about not less than 5 minutes of work. This is basically just me priming the base, painting it a little bit so it's like dark brown underneath. You can't really see it anymore though, the dark brown. Anyway, and then yeah, just putting a bunch of super glue, and then you sprinkle it like your Salt Bay or something on top of on top of the base. Now, of course, do note that if you're going to be planning to use plastic cement on the foot of your Space Marine or something, that's not really going to work anymore. This is definitely not plastic, so I recommend using super glue on diorama bases. like most people do use super glues. Sorry, burping. Anyway, so that's example 1. All right, this is what it would look like if you applied Martian Ironearth to, you know, dirt, sand, cement, all that stuff, stones, right? And you applied it on top of those things that you've already glued onto your base. It amplifies the cracking effect, right? So now there are crevices and whatnot that wouldn't have been there if you just applied Martian Ironearth by itself or any other cracking texture paint. Now the cracking texture paints are very good by itself, don't get me wrong, but this amplifies the effect. Now it looks truly like a Martian surface. And let's see this Martian surface with a mini. Look at that. Now granted, it doesn't make sense for this girl or this statue to be in Mars because this is a Sigmar figure, Our Lady something, I forgot. But anyway, you can maybe argue that because it's bronzified, there's a statue on Mars that like this. Little heresy if you ask me, but hey. Anyway, this looks so good. This is done by, not by me, but Nathan, one of our employees. Look at that. Very nice. And speaking of spooky scary, we have this. This is the diorama that got us our first million view video on TikTok. Like honestly, ever. Yeah, which is on TikTok. But yeah, first million view ever. Look at that. We did this, I think nearly, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? During Halloween. This is a house from Woodland Scenics that we've weathered completely. These strips of wood boards are just from evergreen. We just cut up the styrene pieces, weathered it, made it look like wood boards. Yeah, we just cut up a bunch of the fencing. This stuff here is AK shrubbery that we've glued onto the base. And this is what I'm talking about with the foundation. This would not be possible if you just spray painted it with standard acrylic primers. This would melt. We use sealing primer, exactly what I've shown you, one of the darker green ones. That's what we used. This is a Vallejo tree stump, same with this one. And yeah, this is nice. Hopefully we can do something similar again this year. Now this is personally one of my favorites. I'm biased because I did it. I also had a hand in that diorama though. That's a combined effort of me, Daniela, and David. This is a miniature beach, and that's the foaming of the beach when it crashes onto the wave. Foaming of the wave when it crashes onto the beach. I included this rock, so look at that rock formation, inspired by the grottos anyway. And so what I did was I painted this entire base turquoise, at least this part here, and then I put Vallejo clear water on top of it. Then I put an extra Vallejo foam on top, which is an actual texture product. Paint to make this turquoise looking water is the same technique you can use for making ice. So this is an ice block. This ice block in particular is made with styrofoam. Again, this is the funnier ones where I cut this up and I didn't know about the sealing properties of the other spray and the fact that normal ones would melt. And it melted before my very eyes. I had to scrap an entire video because of it. I didn't know it was a thing. Anyway, so I did overdo this part right here. You see this thing? This is from a effect paint from Vallejo's Express line called Frost. If you apply a little bit, it would only have a little bit of it, but I think I applied too much. Typically, you can accomplish this effect with just white dry brushing and a little bit of random streaks with just a precise brush. And you can accomplish what it looks like cracking and more naturally, even though you can do it irregularly. Is an avatar of Cain that I painted personally. And look at that base. This is what I mean. So I put random marks with white brushing, a precise brush, and then I applied just heavy dry brushing. And then of course the blue is very turquoise green already, and then a really bright contrast blue. Mixed that up, that's what I got, and then did the white dry brushing and precise brushing. Same thing with the sword actually. This is a frost sword. Lighting is terrible in this room. I promise we'll get a studio soon. or we'll build the studio. But yeah, look, same frost effect on the sword. That armor, dude, I'm so proud. He looks like a walking chunk of ice that has blue fire sprouting in it. And I made his plume, which is typically just a plume, look like a sprout of fire. I promise. All right, guys. That being said, that's about it for me. I've showed you what is indeed possible with a little bit of imagination and patience with diorama and basing. And honestly, even if you accomplish a little bit of your results or your vision, you would get incredible results. So yeah, guys, have patience, have fun out there. Catch us on our other social media pages, and we'll see you guys next time, all right?